Welcome to the Probate Realtor Show, your one source for selling and buying real estate through trust and probate. Hear directly from the best attorneys and trusted advisors on how executors and administrators navigate the probate process in and out of court. Being a personal representative or successor trustee can be a daunting task, and often beneficiaries don't have a clear plan. Let us help you make the right decision for your clients, your family, and your legacy. And now, here's your host, the probate realtor himself, Matias Baker Masucci.
Welcome, everybody, to another very exciting episode of the Probate Realtor Show. Today, we are talking with Paul Deloughery, who inherited 14 millions and lost it all. Okay, it's an exaggeration, but I am very excited about this. Paul is an attorney, and he literally wrote the book, Probate Made Simple. So, everybody, please welcome to the show, Paul Deloughery. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matias, very good to talk to you today.
Yes. Okay, this is very exciting. Paul, you have such a fascinating story. You mentioned a few things to me. Let's start from the beginning. Where did the money come from? How did the inheritance come into your life?
Okay, I have to say, 10 years ago, I would not have been having a smile on my face like this, but enough time has gone by. So in 2010, actually 2009, I met my biological father for the first time.
Okay.
He was a Vietnam vet. He was in a nursing home at the time, and within 6 weeks, I was at his bedside in hospice, and I was his only heir, I later learned. And here's the quick story. So there's a long backstory to how I had never actually met my father up until then, but I was 35 at the time. And when he was in hospice, I kind of figured out, well, he's not going to get better. So I went to his home just to secure the place, see what there was. And I noticed his desk with a printer, desktop computer, big honking thing, and printer on it. And on top of the printer was his 2008 income tax return. And on the bottom of the first page, it showed he had almost something like $1.5 million of income from his investments. And so I figured out, long story short, I figured out that he had a $28 million estate. I was the sole heir. I ended up, after paying the federal and state estate taxes, almost half of it was lost to that. But then I ended up getting 14 million. And, I have to say it was pretty exhilarating to have that much money in my TD Ameritrade account. But the thing is that I had no instructions. I was left absolutely nothing, just money in the bank, or, the trading account. And, basically what happened is financial people came out of the woodwork with great investments, supposedly great investments and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, yeah, sure, can't lose. Anyway, I learned otherwise. And what I learned in the process is that, and I should back up. So I'm a probate and estate planning attorney at this time. I really thought I knew what was going on. And I had literally written an article in the local paper about how to protect heirs from losing their inheritance. So I really thought I was on top of all this stuff. But when it happened to me, I was blindsided. And so, yeah, I ended up just making bad decisions. Again, because I had no instructions for what to do, no guidance, no roadmap, nothing. And
now,
so
let me stop you for a second. When we hear about these things, when we hear about people inheriting a lot of money and losing them, there's always gambling involved, drugs, people that, we see things like that. Now, you were already an attorney, right? You were already.
I wish if I had to go back to do it all over again. Oh, there'd be naked women and parties and all kinds of stuff. But no, I thought I was investing. So.
Okay, we see a lot of nefarious things. When people, I live in a world, in Los Angeles, when people can, from time to time, people who are very inexperienced end up coming into a lot of money, whether from the entertainment industry or what you want. And we hear all those nightmare stories of people that lose, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You had people who contacted you and were like, now you have all these capital, because probate is a public thing. So people knew, people were aware of the fact that you inherited all this money. So they came to you and essentially maybe from, with their suit and ties, looking very professionals, and say, you got to buy land over here and I can sell you a piece of this and I can sell you a piece of that. And you went along with it. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, kind of. So probate, it was up in the state of Washington, and the amount of the probate was not public. But I became an accredited investor, which means you have a investable net worth of at least $1 million.
Right.
And so I got on the list and I started getting calls. And I went to an investment conference, and I thought, well, shoot, all these people in these booths must be legitimate people because they're here at this investment conference. But that turned out not to be true either. So yeah, so I kind of got on the list, and then
so you have zero financial education. I mean, in the sense that you didn't listen to like videos from Warren Buffett talking about index funds and things about, like how most of these, investment that are out there are just marketing. Like if people really knew how to make money, they wouldn't tell you how to make money.
That was not the issue. And I have to say that's a comment that I get all the time. Didn't you know how to manage money? That's not the issue. The issue, it ends up being more of a psychological thing. So there's something called sudden wealth. It's not in the DSM-5, or it's not an actual psychological condition that's recognized. But you can go on the internet and learn about it. Basically what happens, and you kind of alluded to it before, when if it's an athlete or someone wins the lottery, or all of a sudden someone comes into a bunch of money, and subconsciously we kind of have this thermometer or this thermostat where we're used to a certain amount of money, we have habits, and subconsciously, like, we really like that's why, that's it's the same thing as why people go on diets, and then they lose weight and then they go back again. They go back to where they were. It's the same kind of thing. Like, you have to actually change your identity. So it's a real, like
I agree with you 100%. 100%. This is really something. This is something also related to success. It's like people, how you have to change your mindset to think like, people talk about it all the time about, the difference between an employee and when you're an entrepreneur, that kind of mindset. So I can really appreciate what you're talking about. So let's take a little step back. You inherit this money. This isn't about people swindling and stealing the money from you. This is about the fact that you experienced sudden wealth. You did not slowly earn from your salary to make 14 million. You just had whatever your net worth was at the time, and then suddenly you are the best looking person at the ball, and everybody wants to dance with you.
Right. Yeah. So I will tell you a couple of things. One is, in terms of the investments, no, I wasn't. Well, was I swindled? I guess you tell me. Let me tell you a quick story. So I invested in a company up in Portland, Oregon, and I bought a bunch of stock. Shortly after that, the president of the company invited me up to his new house. And so it was a beautiful house. He just purchased it. He put a gate in to this place, and I guess the gate whole thing cost $1 million. It had a helicopter pad on top, and it wasn't until maybe a year later, like I mean, I thought it was pretty smart. Like I thought, well, this is great. He's a real successful person. No, I actually ended up eventually piecing things together, and that was my investment, was his house. So yeah. So I mean, yeah, I guess I was swindled. I mean, that really was a con artist that I ended up getting involved with. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, how did you? Yeah. So the answer is yes. And so this was obviously a private company. Did you, when somebody came to you, what led you to make the decision to invest in this company? Did you audit the books? Did somebody say, like, I mean, was it a private company? Was it a publicly traded company? Was there SEC oversight?
Well, it was a private company. SEC cares more about mutual funds and that kind of thing. Once you get into private companies and private equity deals, there's really very little oversight, just from a practical standpoint. That's my experience. So it's you're in shark infested waters, basically.
So what made you decide to invest in that company?
Yeah, I guess that's maybe partly where the whole sudden wealth thing comes in.
No, but what I'm curious about, Paul, is like, did they come to you and they say, we have a cure for cancer? I mean, we're gonna, usually the swindle starts like that. Somebody says like, oh my God, my company's the next to Google, right? I mean, like, you hear it a lot, these pitches that people do, like, of like, how you raise capital. You raise capital by sharing an idea with somebody, and they have to believe in it. And if they believe in it. So my question is, in this company, what was the thing that triggered you and made you think it's a good idea to give them my money?
A couple of things. First of all, like Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff is he was successfully able to con some pretty darn smart people.
Right.
And the guy who was the head of this company that I invested in was also very smart. And I was not the only one who got scammed by this guy. It was like doctors and other people had lost tons of money. But what was it? I mean, yeah, he had a sexy story and we were going to make a bunch of money. And I had just gotten done paying half of the inheritance to the federal government. And then that combined with the fact that I just lost my father, and I would rather have him than the money. I saw the money as kind of a weird consolation prize. And so I just had a weird relationship. I wasn't thinking straight. And what I found from doing research is that it takes people probably a good 5 years to reacclimate to whatever the new situation is. And that has to do with, if you have a death of a close loved one, or you get a divorce, or you come into a bunch of money. It takes a period of years to like reacclimate to that, where you're, finally you're settled down and all that kind of stuff. But the money can go a lot faster than that.
Oh, absolutely. No, you know what? I recently read in an interview, somebody saying that they were hanging out with Eminem, the rapper. He had just become, successful, and they told the story of how he had to call his business manager to see if he could afford a watch, which was only like a couple of $1,000s. The guy was worth, tens of millions. But it just goes to show, like, you may, when you come into sudden wealth, which is what we're talking about, from inheritance, which is, first of all, you got to surround yourself with trustworthy individuals. This is important. Like, that's why, there are good financial advisors out there. And the second thing is that you're not going to be used to living in that type of life. So obviously there's going to be, so this is very interesting. I mean, this aspect of the human psyche. Yes, please go ahead.
This relates to a couple of things. And I think this can apply to anyone. Okay. Because I'm sure that the typical listener here probably is not managing $14 million, for example. But let me tell you a couple of things that you can take away, that the listener can take away. Number one, it is important to have an estate plan. And the reason is that it gives a legal roadmap for what is supposed to happen. And that helps, okay? But there's two other components to it. One is you need a foundation. And let me back up. So as a probate lawyer and estate planning lawyer, I will tell you that I've seen almost no relationship between whether there's an estate plan and when there's going to be probate litigation, whether the family's going to end up fighting in court. Almost no relationship. Okay, people can have their documents all lined up and everything's perfect, and it's a disaster because they're in court for 5 years. Or they can have no documents and everything goes perfectly. The reason for that is there's other fundamental things that are at play, and the families that peacefully transition from one generation to the next in terms of transferring money. We're talking any amount of money, a house, a bank account, whatever. They have certain things. They have family values that they've passed on and stories. Actually, this is where the importance of stories comes in. And if your kids are familiar with how you raised your money, how you accumulated it, what it means to you, what you want your children to do with the money. I mean, that's super important. They may act like they're not listening to you, but they're hearing every word. I assure you with that. And then also,
This relates to the fact that you were never around your father. You didn't know. So my question to you is that, did you end up, you said he was a Vietnam vet, etc. How did your father accumulate his wealth?
okay, he had a 100% disability from the Air Force,
Okay.
and he invested that. He actually started investing in 1962. Then he ended up getting drafted to the Vietnam War, and while he was in the war, he was a navigator on airplanes at the time. He would he would subscribe to the Wall Street Journal,
Okay.
and I'm not sure exactly how this worked, if they shipped the Wall Street Journal over to him. And you have to imagine, like, the information's like a month old by the time he gets it, but he was using that to track investments. And then
So he
ended up
invested in this. When you say he started investing in the stock market.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, and then he got into penny stocks, and he was successful at that, and hit a couple of winners. So
okay, so when you inherited his TD Ameritrade account, were his positions things that everybody know? Did he own like Nvidia, Google, Microsoft things, or was
no,
this? Okay.
no, it was Central and South American stocks primarily. Okay. So yeah, not things that most people knew.
So the reason I'm asking you that, it's because it ties into what you just said. It's like, the raising the children and the things that they know, something that is recognizable. So you inherited something that you had no clue what it was. You didn't even know, like, you didn't know. You saw the ticker, the name, and you're like, I have no idea what it is. Maybe if you had inherited Microsoft or Google or things, you'd be like, you don't think it would have made a difference?
No, no. So he had books, and I still have his books, and he would take notes in the margins, with commenting on all this kind of stuff. And I thought, well, he learned how to trade in the stock market. I can learn the same thing. Of course, he learned over the period of over the course of decades, and I tried to learn it in 3 weeks or a month. So that didn't work out very well. Yeah. So
let me ask you another question that ties into this. Why? Well, first, let me ask you this. What type of life was your father living? I know you were not in his life, but was he living a lavish lifestyle? Was he living a conservative lifestyle?
Extremely conservative. He bought things at Goodwill, and not only that, so he is extremely frugal. The things he had, the furniture he had, he kept the Goodwill sticker on because he was proud of the fact that he got things at half price. So he bought things on sale from Goodwill, and was very proud of that, like the lamp and the chair, and he did buy. So the desktop computer, he had just purchased that right before he ended up going to the nursing home, or going to having his final illness, and that was an extravagant expense for him. Looking at everything else he had. So
now, Paul, why do you think that is? Why do you think your dad lived a frugal life, was very frugal with his money, which is a great virtue? I mean, I don't know, I don't personally know how he was living his life. So being cheap perhaps is not a virtue. You got to make sure you have the right things. But why do you think that is in its case? You think it's because he had to earn it slowly? Okay.
Remember, I was telling you that there's kind of three things going on that can map out a successful transition from one generation to the next. You have your legal documents, you have a foundation in terms of stories, and I call it the family code of honor. Something like that, where there's an agreement and understood rules within the family. And then the third thing is just healing traumas, because that's the other thing that can really undermine things, and which is kind of related. Maybe it's related to addiction also. Frankly, a lot. I've also noticed a correlation, and I'll answer your question. Hold on, let me just generalize. I've noticed a correlation over the years between families that experience litigation and conflict after a loved one passes away. There's a relationship between that, and oftentimes at least one of the people has an addiction problem and or some kind of past trauma. that's not dealt with. It might be sexual abuse or something like that, some kind of
Sure.
abuse or whatever. So in my father's case, my father's father was very abusive and kind of in the generation back then. I mean, men didn't talk about emotions. So
Right.
if there was some kind of trauma or something like that, it just didn't get healed. He just sucked it up and moved on with life. That's just the way people did things. And so like in his case, I think he didn't know how to relate to people. And he grew up really, really poor, like extremely poor. So my uncle, my father's brother, actually had to wear a dress to school because they were so poor. They they found a dress that he had to wear, and it was literally that bad, if you can even imagine. Talk about humiliating. Did I answer your question? I forgot what the
Yeah.
question was.
No, the question was, why do you think your father lived so frugally? And you answered it. You answered the
Yeah.
question. It's because he can't, he had to earn his money. And obviously, he didn't grow up in a family that educated him on spending money or things like that. So in a sense,
Right.
so when you connected with him,
But he was very smart. I mean, he was,
of course, I mean,
yeah, he had, well, not only smart from investing, obviously, but he almost got a PhD in political science, and all he
wow.
needed to do was do the internship. And I guess he got it from the University of Maryland, I guess.
Mhm.
And because after he died, I saw letters from the poli-sci department there saying, hey, you just need to finish your dissertation so we can give you your PhD.
Right.
And I think that was back in the late 70s, and by then he had made enough money. Plus, he was a Vietnam vet, and I think his unfortunately veterans, being in combat really messes with people.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your situation. Here's where we're gonna go now. I
Okay.
think it's very important. You have the story, you got the background, and now you've decided to become a crusader because you ended up writing I'm making liberal use of that word crusader, but
Yep.
how do we arrive at
Yep.
probate made simple? You realize, okay, there's something wrong with the system. I am an attorney. I think I'm smart. I went to law school, and look what happened to me. I mean, how much more wealth out there is completely lost? So you decided to do something about it. Let's talk about the journey. Let's talk about the book. How did that come about?
So I actually have two different law firms. There's
Uh-huh.
the before and the after. Okay.
Okay.
So the before part, like before a person passes away, we try to plan. And so I have a law firm called Sudden Wealth Protection Law, and we help people protect their assets and empower their children to be responsible stewards of their wealth.
Right.
And then with Probate Made Simple, the whole idea is to try to just simplify the legal process. Again, because there's the different elements I was talking about in terms of how to successfully transfer wealth from one generation to the next.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to minimize the legal component of that so people can focus on the emotional part more.
Got it. Let's talk about the first firm that you talked about, the Sudden Wealth. You mentioned something
Yeah.
that is very interesting to me. I'm a father of 4. So you mentioned something about educating the children, to be financially responsible. How do you accomplish that?
Well, it's a process. It's not a matter of signing documents. And I try to educate my clients, and for the clients that are or people that are open to this, we can have family meetings. And I actually did this with a local family that has they own a business that makes maybe about 90 million a year. So pretty successful family. And I would regularly get together with them, like maybe once a year. I'll get together with them, with the whole family, meaning the founder of the company, his wife, and the children, sometimes their children, and get together and just kind of just go over things and talk about, are there any conflicts, that kind of thing, and just reinforce. I'm an advocate of what I call a code of honor,
Right.
which is kind of like rules that you just stick by, and basically So it's the difference between a championship team and the other team. A championship team, the way I define it is, they just have they have priorities in order. Like, winning is goal number one. The team's comfort, I guess, comes next, and then individual comfort comes after that. So, even after, like if you're going through the toughest time, whatever that is, if you have that foundational understanding that, we all understand that no matter what, we're going to stick together, we're going to get this resolved. If everyone in the family has that understanding and then goes from there, it's very unlikely that they're going to end up in court and suing each other and all that kind of stuff. So, I try to just kind of advocate as much as I can for anyone who will listen.
That makes total sense. So, I agree with you with everything you've said as far as, in California, we try to avoid probate, with instruments like trusts, et cetera, so that the transition happens without having to probate a will, essentially.
Sure.
And I agree with exactly what you said, in the sense that, no matter how much planning you make, there's no correlation between all the planning you can make and whether litigation takes place or not, because that's going to be within the people that are left behind. If people are going to be fighting over a chair, then you got an issue.
Right.
But if the family stays together and like you said, is willing to overcome the difficulties together, then you have to take a different approach. Let's talk about you decided to do this, to educate people, anybody that will listen. Have you ever, has it occurred to you when you came into the wealth, I need to stop, I can stop working now, I don't have to do what I'm doing as an attorney? Or did you like your work enough to say, you know what, I'll be doing this for the rest of my life, no matter how much money I have?
So I did close my law firm down for about 2 years. And I tried to learn investing and different things. And so the reality is, okay, this is going to get into psychology a little bit here, but
sure,
I think we all say we want to do something, but then when you watch yourself, you're doing something else. Like, it might be going to the gym, eating healthy, whatever, but then or doing this hobby that that in your mind, like, you want to do or whatever. But then what you actually do on a day-to-day basis is something completely different. So for me, like, I tried to learn about investing, and I really focused on it. But I don't know, like, after a while, well, honestly, a couple things happened. The money was tied up in these companies that I had invested in. I needed cash flow, and so that pushed me to do something. But like, it was just obvious. I really wanted to get back into practicing law. And I really like it. I actually, like, I'm having the time of my life right now. And
so you think that what happened to you, it's obviously shaped the person you are today and getting you up there to help people. What are your feelings now about the journey that you've had to go through? Any resentment, or if you accepted it and you say, look, this is what happened. This is what this is giving me an opportunity. You know how people say there is a reason for everything. This is giving me an opportunity to be firsthand. I don't talk to many attorneys who have gone through the inheritance process themselves. I talk to a lot of attorneys who are practicing it, and who are most of the time wealthier than their parents were. So it's interesting, the fact that you went through this journey and you went through it, and now here you are. What is happening next? What do you see this going to?
I just really like what I do. And I forgot what your initial question was.
Yeah, the question is essentially, you've had this journey, you had the experience, right? So what is the next chapter for you, in the sense of, like, you are doing what you do, you love doing it, but you made it. If your investing was successful, you wouldn't be doing what you were doing now, right? If you turned that 14 into 30 millions, then probably you wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now. It's the journey that got you to where you are, right?
That's really interesting. I don't think I'm ever going to be the kind of guy to be sitting by the pool with mojitos, no matter what. I really like being engaged and doing what I do. I really love helping people. I love my team that's here. My daughter's working with me now. That's
Nice.
great. And no, I'm really having the time of my life right now. And looking back, I think to answer your question, so what have I gotten from it? Money's like a magnifying glass, in my opinion. And a lot of money is like a big magnifying glass. And whatever flaws you have, if you're an addict and you get some money, you're going to spend it on, whatever your drug of choice is. If you're, if you're irresponsible, well, you get some money, you're going to be more irresponsible. If you're a mean person, you get a bunch of money, you're just going to be a mean person with money. So, and you'll be able to be more mean to more people with that much money. So for me, like it made it blatantly obvious what my flaws were. And I really needed to figure out who I was. So growing up, this actually goes back to my own childhood traumas. The reason that I didn't know my father until I was 35 was because of, or actually 42 is when I actually met him for the first time. I learned about him when I was 35. But the reason for that was my mom kept him a secret. And, there's reasons. I don't hold a grudge against her anymore. She's passed away too. She had her own reasons. Yeah. So she wanted me to grow up in a nice, stable household. And I did. But unfortunately, when there are secrets in the house, things are never totally stable. Like everything's always just a little bit off kilter. And when a parent is trying to keep a secret from a child like that, they end up being controlling. So I grew up being very controlled. And as a result, I was not encouraged to figure out what I wanted to do myself.
Right.
I was usually told, well, you shouldn't feel that way. You should feel this way, or that kind of thing. So I just grew up questioning my own feelings and questioning what I wanted. My mom kind of told me, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should do this or something. From a very, very early age. Right. So I had to relearn what it was to make my own choices and to understand, I guess, just get in touch with myself, I guess, to put it simply. And so, and that's just so important. And it's a learning journey for anyone listening to this podcast. We're all on a journey, and it's just it's important to, I guess, always kind of ask yourself, who am I? And and that's your foundation.
Yes, it reminds me of, on the Oracle of Delphi, all those Greek philosophers, know thyself. That was
there you go.
Written on the
there
door.
You go.
Know thyself. Paul, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you very much for coming, for sharing your story with my audience. Before I let you go, I wanted to, if somebody needs to get a hold of you and they want to purchase your book, or they want to hire you as an attorney to help them plan for their family, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Just go to Probate Made Simple, probatemadesimple.com. You can get that book over there. There's a place you can sign up for it. And then actually, if you go to probatemadesimple.com/myths, you can download these 5 myths. And so, yeah, it's helpful. It's good information to have. But
I appreciate it.
I'd love to, and even, okay, so I practice law in Arizona, but anyone can reach out to me, and if you have a simple question, I try to make myself available. But thanks for having me, Matias.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I will thank for our audience for joining us in this journey. I feel like we should have Paul back at some point. I feel like there's so much more that we need to talk about, but this has been such a pleasure.
We still need to talk about probate and real estate and probate.
Yes, exactly. There's so much left to talk about. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to the Probate Realtor Show. Find more episodes and interact with us at probaterealtor.la. That's probaterealtor.la. Listen, ask questions, and get results. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The probate realtor Matias Baker Masucci is a licensed real estate broker in California, DRE number 020547763. Any legal information provided is for informational purposes only and not for the purpose of providing legal advice. Contact an attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal issue or problem. We make no guarantees as to the accuracy of any information. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.